I'm Jonah Comstock, editor-in-chief at Farmer Forum. I'm here at CAR TCR in Boston with Josh Ludwig. Josh is the global director at ScaleReady. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
So, tell me a little bit about ScaleReady. You were just telling me what you do, but let's have the summary on camera too.
Yeah, and just maybe helps with my background. So I'm a scientist by training, worked in the lab. I ended up finding my way to this really amazing technology called G-Rex. It's a way to grow T cells and NK cells really well, really simply. So I worked for a company called Wilson Wolf for the last decade, and we were having great success helping clients manufacture their cells more consistently, repeatably, and with a lot less cost. But we felt that we kind of had blinders on and we couldn't really help with the whole process because we were only focused on expansion of the cells.
Hmm.
So we started ideating, could we create a joint venture, a consortium where we put kind of best in class technologies for a whole manufacturing workflow? That's what became ScaleReady. So we have three partner companies. The one I worked for, Fresenius Kabi, has the cell processing instruments, and Biotechne has basically all the top end GMP reagents that go into the cell culture device.
There's been a lot of conversation at the show about scale and costs
Yep.
and manufacturing and sort of how we get these therapies are the science is great, they're very effective, but they in so many ways don't line up with the system and how we produce drugs, how we prescribe them. So tell me a little bit about kind of how you guys fit in and what contributions you have to sort of solve some of those industry-wide problems about scaling this and creating these therapies.
So let me describe a few more problems, but I swear I'll have some solutions. But yes, problems with scale, the problems with consistently manufacturing, the problems today of money's not flowing in, falling off trees anymore, and people aren't funding science experiments for long durations. They're wanting to see real practical um, production of these therapeutics that can get into the clinic, that can reach patients. And so I think the investors are getting a little more smart about being efficient with their dollars as well, which is a good thing. It's a challenge right now, though, because as an industry with the best of the best, world class engineers and cell biologists, PhDs that really know their stuff and want to be innovative, I think the field has struggled with wanting to be innovative for innovation's sake, when really we need to think about how can we be the most, I say we, how can every company be the most efficient manufacturing organization that they can be? And generally speaking, whether you're manufacturing a device or a software or anything, you're trying to get it as simple and cut out all of the complexity that you can. And that's basically what we enable our clients to do and what ScaleReady is trying to do, which is simple, standardized workflows that can be scaled and basically automate those on massive scale. Whereas I think where people have run into trouble is unproven technology and trying to, shoehorn everything into an end-to-end automation, and it just becomes super complex, super expensive. And because there's not standardization right now, um, every kind of automated system becomes a little snowflake. So it's really hard to change. So we, as a company, what ScaleReady can do, and then what I think the industry needs is honestly just strip away the complexities as much as possible, realize you have to become a very efficient manufacturing organization. And the name of the game is, speed to the clinic, speed to market. And the race should be not who can be the most innovative, but who can treat more patients. So,
So one thing I've heard a lot of talk about is auto and allo
mm-hmm.
and the difference there in terms of the manufacturing challenges and the scalability. Do you work with both those kinds of companies?
We do, yeah. And so that is a challenge in the sense of, how do we effectively message to the field, that if you have a series of tools in your manufacturing toolkit that work for both autologous and allogeneic workflows, that can scale within size for scaling up a production into maybe 100 billion or a trillion cells, but also scale out in terms of 100 and 1,000 patients. Wouldn't that be a great platform to work with, so you could actually build a facility and have a manufacturing workflow that 80% of it is going to be the same, whether it is autologous or allogeneic. And I think today, again, people get stuck on a kind of a unique snowflake for each, and we're trying to take a step back and say, how do we industrialize
Right.
cell therapy? And you kind of have to, again, you got to keep things simple. You have to think about that scale in mind. And for a lot of these groups and a lot of these companies, they're definitely kind of trimming down their pipeline and maybe focusing on their lead candidate. But ultimately, most of the companies that are developing products within the space have an autologous and an allogeneic stream of development in their pipeline. And if both of those are completely different manufacturing strategies, so much overhead, and you need basically two different facilities. And well, wouldn't it be great if you could have one facility that could flex and work for both, because you don't know if it's autologous or allo that's going to be the long-term, most viable or most efficacious product in your pipeline. So yeah, I think people need to think about, are there tools out there, are there strategies out there that could work for more than just one very specific thing? Could we simplify and kind of standardize both for autologous and allo at the same time? And the answer for what I've seen is you can, with the right tools.
So tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing here at the show. Are you exhibiting anything, making any news, and what are you looking out for?
Yeah, so ScaleReady has a healthy pipeline of events that we go to. Personally, as a global director, I try to get to the big ones that generally are going to be groups presenting new data. There's a lot of new data being presented at this conference, which is great. So the likes of this one, or an ISCT, or an ASGCT, I really try to get to every year, because we're always trying to learn what else is coming down the pipeline, what are the new strategies. We are exhibiting. We have a booth number 70, and we're out here trying to show people there's tools available today that are in commercialized CAR T drugs that work, that scale, that can be used efficiently. And as the field is being forced to look at efficiency really for the first time, which is a challenge for a lot of people, but also an opportunity for the field to say we can move a whole lot faster if we keep that efficiency in mind. And then maybe the last thing I'll say on what am I doing here, or what are we talking about here? So ScaleReady is a unique formation of a joint venture that I think at the time it took our partner companies really putting their money where their mouth is, in terms of saying what's going to drive the field forward is collaboration and open collaboration and sharing of ideas, and maybe even being a little vulnerable and sharing more than you would with complementary technology, a different company. But ultimately we said what ScaleReady could be would be greater than the sum of the individual partner companies and their products.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely true, because now we can work on the whole workflow. And I think as an industry, and you see this more and more, there's a lot more strategic partnerships happening. I hope to continue to see that, and I hope to continue to see the data and best practices coming out of these strategic partnerships between tool providers, vendors, therapeutic developers, academic institutes. I really hope that those collaborations will result in people sharing information more broadly, kind of for the greater good of the industry, so that we don't have 100 CAR T developers trying to solve the same problem 100 times, and it's 100 times more expensive than it should be.
Yeah, I mean, this really feels like a tale as old as time in pharma, this tension between working together and keeping your proprietary stuff proprietary. But it's so important in this space, especially where you have so much effort, and whenever it's duplicated, whenever people are trying to reinvent the wheel, then that's just sort of like a waste towards getting where we want to be, right?
We find ourselves in a position where, people are getting a little more cognizant about the money they put in. They're like, I'm pretty sure I already paid for this a few years ago. Why are you solving the same problem?
Yeah. What's exciting to you as you look ahead to the future of this space, near term, long term?
Yeah, that's a great question, a tough question, in the sense of how do you predict the future in an ever-changing, like as innovative as it gets field. So maybe I won't predict the future, but I will say I truly hope to see, and I feel like we will see a fast we're going to hit an inflection point where there's going to be a lot of T cell and NK cell TCR therapies get approved. And we're going to see a lot of these approvals happen more quickly if we can, as a field, collaborate and share not the secret sauce, not that 10 to 20% that differentiates one company from the next, but if we can help standardize kind of the 80% and give people maybe a cheat sheet, a blueprint, a faster way to generate clinical data on their way to commercialization. I am supremely confident that as you look 5, 10 years out, you're going to just see a whole lot more than 7 approvals in the last 7 years, right? And it's going to happen. We're going to continue to move further up in terms of the line of treatment, and yeah, there's going to be a whole lot more patients that are have hope and have remissions because of the work that's being done at CAR TCR Summit and all the groups here.
Anything else you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
We covered a lot. I guess what I will say is maybe challenge the field to think about the greater good of this field. And, you know, while it's hard or scary or maybe concerning because we're dealing with complex information and certainly you need to keep confidential information confidential. There's patented information that people are trying to, you know, get out in front of so that they can and should take advantage when they invent something novel. But I would challenge the industry to think about being more open, being more collaborative, and that's how we're going to see these series of approvals happen, not by everybody kind of dealing things in their own box.
Great. Well, events like this are a great start, right?
Yeah.
People are sharing what they're doing and their innovations. So look forward to seeing what else comes up at the show.
Great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Great chatting with you.